Hello, I'm Deanna Herron, host of the Deanna Herron podcast show. Have you ever wanted to do something bold, like start a business, write a book, or go for your dream job? This show was created for women just like you who want to be bold, shine bright with grace. My goal is to educate you, inspire you, and empower you with ideas that can transform your life. Be inspired by the Deanna Herron podcast show at deannaherron.net. Hey everyone, welcome to today's podcast. This is Deanna Herron, your host of the Deanna Herron podcast show. Today's podcast is all about champion mindset. And you guys, being an entrepreneur for many, many years and having a position in leadership, a champion mindset is something that can be created. And I today want to help you create that mindset that will help you get through some obstacles and some difficult times, but also that mindset that really helps you champion up and level up in your leadership. I have with me on today's podcast a special guest that I'm excited to share with you, and his name is Ratu Tagive, and he is a great friend of a great friend, and he has such an amazing story. When I came up with the topic of champion mindset, I was thinking initially, the Olympics are happening. You know, we are all watching the Olympics and we see those strong mindsets of those champions. The first person that came to my mind was actually Ratu. And so I'm honored to have you on this podcast today. And I know that our listeners, Ratu, are going to get so much valuable information from you. I just want to open it up and have you introduce yourself to everyone so they can get to know you a little bit before we do a deep dive into that champion mindset that you have.
Thanks so much, Deanna. It's a pleasure to be here, and humbling to hear what you're saying, and just an honor to be able to sort of meet up and share the way that we're going to share about our journeys, and hopefully help whoever's listening with whatever's going on. As you mentioned, my name's Ratu Tagive. I was born and raised in Australia, and my heritage is actually Fijian. So both my parents born and raised in little Pacific island in Fiji, and they both moved over to Australia individually, and they met each other actually in Australia. And then I was born. I've got two younger sisters, a younger brother, and then I've actually got how many? One, two, three, four actually older brothers from both mum and dad. They were both actually previously married in Fiji, and then they moved over and met each other. So it was a big family. It was about I think it was 8 or 9 of us all together. So it's a big family. But my partner Victoria McHugh, actually, she's in the Arbonne business, and she's very great friends with Deanna. So that's where the connection is. And I play rugby. I grew up playing rugby league, actually, but living in Scotland now in the UK, and playing rugby professionally over here with the Glasgow Warriors. So we came across in 2016, and we're here now 5 years later. But that's the connection. My partner Victoria in the Arbonne business. So that's a little bit about me.
So 9 siblings.
Nine of us all together. It's a big family, so you had to get in, and if you weren't first in at the dinner table, you'd be you'd be left with nothing. So it was always busy.
So you really had to really stand out to get some attention in a family.
Exactly. I guess that's the competitive nature, just naturally from growing up in a big family. So I guess I was always on the path of becoming an athlete from early ages, just having to compete at home in a big family. Yeah.
Were you born in Fiji?
No, I was born and raised in Australia. So born in Wollongong, which is a city 2 hours south of Sydney, by the beach. Really, really nice city. So born and raised in Australia.
Okay. And now you live
in Glasgow in Scotland. So in the UK now, I'm playing rugby professionally over here with the Glasgow Warriors. So
amazing. So I'm gonna brag on you for just a bit, because we haven't even really officially met. Like I've never even had the opportunity to hug his neck, but I know his fiance really well. And so I've actually heard lots of stories about you through Vic and have watched you from afar. And really what I see is just, and she tells me stories of ways that you coach her and you're such an amazing partner to her. And I just think, wow, he has such a strong mindset for a young man. How old are you?
Just turned 30 in April.
Just turned 30. Yeah. Such a strong mindset. And I think, a lot of people believe that we are born with a certain mindset, a champion mindset. I don't believe that's true. You and I share some similarities in the way that we, our upbringing and some obstacles and struggles, et cetera. And if you're comfortable with that, I'd love to just hear about some of the things that you were able to overcome.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, we grew up in a big family. So mom and dad, the typical Pacific Island, nations are, very poor. The currencies are, sort of minimum wage over there. So mom and dad, like I said, were both previously married and basically moved to Australia to, find a better life, to be able to, for themselves, and then, hopefully raise a family, with what to be able to provide, what they didn't have growing up. So they both moved across, and then how do you say, my dad didn't finish high school, so he didn't have any higher education. And mom, same thing as me. She came, I don't know how many brothers and sisters mom had. I think she has more than, I think she came from a family of 13 actually. So big families as well. Pacific Island families are naturally just, big families, but they both moved to Australia just to provide for a better life, but not having, secondary education, or so just basically finding, entry-level jobs in Australia. Then, like I said, there's four of us with, my mum and dad, but then obviously having older brothers from mom and dad's previous marriages. You can understand that they'd be just making ends meet, and not even that, to be able to provide for us all. Mom, on the back of that, dad was basically just working, a lot of cash in hand jobs where he'd just be getting, paid, cash. It was off the books, and mom was basically I guess you could say the matriarch of the family, basically, providing for us all, and the real breadwinner. Fast forward to my brother and I, maybe 16, 17, even earlier than that, we both, grew up playing rugby league in Australia. And at the ages of 15, and 16, you sort of start signing your first, semi-professional contracts. And even at that age, we were already, well, even before playing sport, we'd be working and, contributing to, the bills and everything at home. And then we'd both be training and everything, and signing, our first semi-professional contracts at the age of 16, 17. That's all we wanted to do, as kids, is be athletes and play rugby league professionally. But then there was also all of that added pressure of being able to help financially. That's also a part of the Pacific Island culture. It's very much a village mindset where it's, everyone looks after each other. It is a beautiful thing about, the Pacific culture, but then it can also be, incredibly detrimental, which I'll touch on a little bit, because there's that unsaid expectation, that the family is always there expecting you to, provide financially. And so, like I said, fast forward to when we finally signed our sort of first semi-professional contracts. Mom was, as you got to understand, incredibly, just had so much on her shoulders. She ended up developing, a really bad gambling addiction. It was kind of, the word that comes to mind is ironic, because she tried to protect myself and my brother from having to financially provide at such a young age and have that pressure on our shoulders. But ultimately, she ended up just making things a lot worse, because she tried to make ends meet by, taking her paycheck and going and gambling to try to, cover the bills and everything. And we'd speak to mum and be like, look, we're making, a little bit of money to be able to help out, and it's enough to be able to, cover, rent and everything and all the expenses. And she'd say, look, it's not your responsibility in that. And I can understand that she was trying to protect, us, but, made things a lot worse by trying to cover things, by herself. And it was always just, so frustrating, because you wanted to help, but, like I said, mum was trying to protect us, but was doing the exact opposite, if you will. So, that's, a little bit, I guess, about the family side of things. So at the time, I was 19, and I was studying. I got into university, and I actually got into studying law. So I was studying law, and I'm very much about the mind. I was studying a double degree, like in law, and it was sociology. I always wanted to do psychology. I don't know why. I just knew growing up, it's just the way that the type of person that I am. And I guess, I'm just so far into personal development and, the mental side of things with sport, not just sport, work and life. It applies to everything. But yeah, I was starting a public at the time, which was law and sociology. And then I was actually training full time. I'd signed my first professional contract full time with the West Tigers, a team in Sydney. And my older brother was one of the next sort of big names coming up in rugby league. He had a big money contract at the Sydney Roosters, but nobody knew what was going on at home. I'd be getting calls at training, and even now when I look back, I'm like that was a lot to deal with, for anyone, let alone a 19-year-old kid. I'd felt like an adult for so long, because like I said, we'd been helping out, with things. It was just naturally helping out from, a young age. But we'd be getting calls at training from, the landlord and the real estate agency saying, look, you guys are, months behind in rent, and they didn't want to, kick the family out into the street. But it was just so much, at the time I didn't realize, but so much stress and anxiety. I'd be at training and I wouldn't even be able to just focus on I'd be in team meetings and I'd just be sitting there and I'm not there, just vacant, and and again, it was it was quite normal. I thought it was normal at the time, everyone else helps out and all that. That's all we knew. So I didn't speak to anyone. My older brother, we just didn't know how to speak to anyone about it. And obviously there's staff and all that, the welfare staff and that you can access, but we just didn't know how to speak to anyone at the club. Fast forward a few years after that. A year into my first professional contract, I had a shocking year. I just didn't do any I dropped out of my university degree, and then I signed a 2-year deal. And this is probably one of the biggest moments in career and life for myself was I had a bad year for obvious reasons, and I thought, look, I'm going to just flush that, let it be water under the bridge. I'll take on the next year of my professional contract and go from there. I'm not going to do the uni. It was too much to try to balance everything, and just clear my head and have a good season the next season. So I turned up to the first day of training, and everyone's getting all of the new kit for the season. Everyone has their bags and their names on it and everything. And I'm looking about and my bags, like, there's not, my kit's not there. And our team, so the club manager came up, is like, hey mate, can I just speak to you for a second? And like, you just know, like, like I could tell, like, by his body language, and I was like, this is not good. He's like, called me up into the office. He's like, mate, has your agent not spoken to you? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, mate, we've terminated your contract. And
wow.
I was like, even now, like, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, that's like, he's like, surely would have spoken to me. Like, that's like, and it was like, he obviously felt bad. Like, that's how I was finding out. And, I didn't know what was going on. So I just called my agent straight away. I was like, man, what's going on? And it was like, look, for whatever reason, like he hadn't gotten in touch with me. And so I was like, I think the first person I called was my previous coach from like I'd played under 20s the year before with the Canterbury Bulldogs. And then I signed my professional contract with the new team, the West Tigers. I called my Canterbury Bulldogs coach.
How old were you, Ratu? How old were you?
I was 19. Yeah, I was 19.
Wow.
So, I called my coach. And I was like, mate, like, is there any chance of me, like, coming back? I'm literally like, at this time, like, there's no money in the market. Like, everybody's spent their salary caps. Like, there's no deals. Like, and I'd heard nothing from my coach. I'd spoken to no one, and nobody really knew what was going on. And I didn't really like. Now that I think about it, like, I don't think like my extended family, like, uncles and aunties and cousins and everything, no one really knew. Like, I didn't, it's not, I guess, something that you go around speaking about. But the first thing I thought was like, I'm going to call my coach, and I went back and was just playing. I wasn't playing for any money. Back with the Canterbury Bulldogs, but I ended up. What happened there? I was So I was playing with the Canterbury Bulldogs, like earning no money really. I was working like delivering furniture, just to pretty much still just to help out to keep everything at home afloat, to make sure that I've got two younger sisters and a younger brother that really just didn't want them to be kicked out of the the home, and mum was just again just trying to cover everything just on her own. And I was just working and just playing. And again, like, I look back now and I really realize like how much I was struggling, but I didn't know how to like cope at the time or like speak to anyone. And then I ended up just going AWOL. Basically, I didn't speak to my trainer and my coach. And I basically just I said, look, I'm not earning enough money here. And I just need to get out of Sydney. I moved down to Canberra, and I ended up working. I applied for a job at one of the hotels in Canberra, and I was working as a hotel porter, just like delivering everyone's luggage around to their rooms and everything. And I was making more money just working full time, in a hotel than trying to continue to chase the dream. And one thing I realized now looking back as well was like I was just burnt out, like just emotionally, like spiritually, like everything. I just burning the match at both ends. And I'd be out every other weekend with friends and everything, just drinking, just that was I was quite like resentful to my parents and everything. And it was silly, obviously. Like I was like, I'm just gonna not speak to them and deal with them, and I'll just go out and just drink. And that that obviously wasn't helping. I just made things worse. So I ended up just moving away from Sydney, moved down to Canberra, and then that's how Victoria and I ended up meeting. So it's crazy, like how things work out. Like that had everything. It does sound so cliche, but it is true. Had everything not sort of gone the way that it had, I would never have moved down to Canberra. Like Victoria and I would never have met. So like I said, here we are, 2021, all these years later. Things you know, whether we realized it or not at the time, like things were just unfolding, I guess, the way that they needed to. And it was just like, why? There was a lot of like, why me? Like, one thing that I thought about, you know, earlier as I was speaking, like, I'd see my friends, you know, going out for like every other weekend, and you know, the parents, like, yeah, I was like laughing Victoria about this, like, you know, paying for like phone bills and that, and like, it's like, you guys not help out, like, you know, bills and stuff at home, is that? And they're like, no, and I'm like, oh, well, like just assuming that, you know, it's everyone just sort of like, you know, that's just how everyone's like brought up. And so like when we'd go out, like, I was like, how do you guys afford to go out every weekend? Like, you know, I'd be going out, like, you know, with my friends just to just, you know, that escaping from like a toxic environment at home. And I'd have no money going out, and I'd look like, I've got no money to come out. They'd be like, that's fine, like, you know, we'll look after you and that, whatever. But I would always like be, I guess, somewhat like bemused as to like, how the heck do you, like, all these, like, my friends have so much money, you know, at that age. But obviously, like, you know, like, not everyone, you know, has the, you know, all the same upbringing, and I guess the extent of the amount of pressures that we had at home. But like I said, I went AWOL. I left from the Bulldogs. I didn't speak to any of the coaches. I just didn't know how to, and I was like, I just need to get out of this environment. But then I moved down to Canberra, and that's where I met Victoria. I was working in the hotel, and then I was still sending money back home. And then it got to a point where it was actually when I met Victoria, because I was like, it's funny because, and Victoria said the same thing about me. I didn't care how much it affected me. I couldn't put that on someone else. Like, I'd never had a partner, like a girlfriend or anything. Growing up, I was always like, I know how much my parents struggle. I just want to, you know, just study, or like, you know, make a career for myself. And then, you know, I always ever thought like, you know, a relationship would be like a distraction. But then meeting Victoria, it's so funny. Like I said, I was just all this escapism and, you know, trying to get away from everything. Like, I'd not seen the other side of the coin of like what a relationship could be, to have somebody to share all that pressures and just speak to about everything. And she was probably like one of the first people that I spoke to, was like, you know, so she's from like a very, like, you know, well-off family, and two very like different two very different upbringings. And one of the first questions she asked me was, she was like, why didn't you have a car, like, to drive to work in that? Like, you just catch a bus around. And I sort of chuckled. I was like, oh, like, we definitely come from very different worlds. Like, but that was just like, you know, the innocence of, like, she was just, you know, genuinely, you know, just asking the question. But yeah, I was
so
working
it's
at the hotel.
interesting because I mean, we have so many similarities, because I did the same thing. I went to university for a couple of years, and just, you know, I was out on my own by 18, self-supporting, etc. And it was a lot of pressure. You know, it's a lot of pressure to grow up I mean, I actually grew up a lot earlier than that, but at 18, I was fully, you know, self-supporting. And so I left college for a little while and learned to party.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
But, you know, so we share some similarities in that. And one of the things that I see with your upbringing, what a difficult situation you were brought up in, because it's part of the heritage of your family for the children to help provide as well.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
And then how can you have dreams of your own when you are, you know, helping to provide? No slam on your parents. That's the way that they were raised as well. And so I can see how perhaps a lot of people that have dreams, their dreams go by the wayside. Because they're spending the majority of their time helping to support their family.
Yeah. And that's exactly why, you know, I said, you know, I alluded to it earlier when I said, you know, it's the best and the worst thing about the Pacific Island culture, where it's, you know, all for one and one for all. And then you have the dynamic where your family, it becomes an unset expectation, and that's when it becomes toxic because if you're not able to voice how you truly feel, it's just like, look, you respect your elders no matter what, whether you agree or not, and that's not healthy at all. And that's I guess one of the stigmas that you try to break. And I guess it's not really unique to just the Pacific Island culture. It's with anyone, with your parents. Like your parents obviously have expectations of what they want for you, and you've got maybe different plans. Like you want to do something else, and it's that fear of finally speaking up and look, I actually want to do this with my life. And that can be a glass ceiling for a lot of people. I know it was for me for a lot of time, for a long time, in my life. And like I said, it wasn't until I met Victoria that I finally sort of no, look, it's like I said, I didn't care how much it affected me. I'd do anything to help my family. But then, understanding how unhealthy that is and everything, and then not until it was potentially going to affect someone else, and I was like, look, that's all bets are off. That's not going to happen. So
you obviously at one point you made the decision,
yeah,
to go after your dreams. Where I could see many people probably didn't make that decision because of the expectation. Yeah. And you're right. It's just like society today in the US. Our parents have certain expectations for us, and sometimes we live under those expectations and we never really go after what we want.
Exactly.
The champion mindset in you decided to live your life. And at what point did that happen for you?
How do you say, it feels like it's it's a blessing in disguise. Like I say, I was working at the hotel as a hotel porter. Have you ever heard of maybe motivational speakers? Probably not the maybe that's the way to categorize him. Have you heard of a guy called Les Brown?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd be working every day at the hotel, and I'd have my earphones in, and I'd be just going through the hotels and everything, and I'd be listening to I listened to him for about, I don't know, maybe however long I was working there, definitely at least 6 to 9 months straight every day. Just I'd listen to the same things. Once I get to the end of the catalog, I just listen to everything again, while you're working. And when I met Victoria, that's probably to answer the question is, the point where, I made the decision, and I called Mum. I was like, hey Mum, she was quite, what's the word? I was quite, I was tiptoeing around the conversation. I was like, she's like, so how are you? I was like, it's good. And she's like, what's up? You sound quite, standoffish. And I was like, oh, no, nothing. And again, this is, indicative of the culture where, there's a lot of subjects, like sex, alcohol, speaking about, you just don't speak about things a lot of subjects are quite taboo. So I've never really spoken to Mum and Dad. You just never have those conversations with Mum and Dad. And again, maybe it's not unique to just the Pacific Island culture, but anyway, I was trying to tell that I met Victoria. And I was like, and then she knows me, she's like, did you meet a girl? And I was like, yeah, is that obvious? And she's like, I know you, I know my son, I've known you all my life. And I was like, yeah, look, I met a girl down here in Canberra, and yeah, look, I asked her out, and she's, and all the rest of that, and she was just smart, and I could it was just over the phone, but I could just I know that she was just laughing and just smiling, and so that was a nice moment and everything. But that was the start of almost drawing a line in the sand, because a couple of weeks later, I'd met up, with Victoria's dad, and he'd sort of had the conversation with me, hey, you guys have been going out for a while, where do you see yourself? Or, that sort of hard conversation, with a dad. And then for the first time ever, I did speak to Victoria, but not to the when I spoke to her dad, and I was like, look, this is we just sat at coffee and I shared everything with him, and I had tears coming down, basically everything that I spoke to you about. And he just sat there and he's just his reaction, like he just put his hand around me and he just hugged me. Far out. He's had I not had someone like Victoria and Stephen and what's now my family, there to hold my hand through everything. I find myself, what I'm trying to say is, like, I find myself incredibly lucky, because I would never have made the decision, like, on my own. It's almost like we knew what had to be done, but it was like, everything's swept under the rug. And he's like, what has to be done? It's like, you love your family no matter what, but what you permit, you promote. If you're just enabling, a situation that's just going to continue to run itself more and more into debt. I was like, yeah, I know. And it's almost like you had, for the first time in a long time, for myself, like a father figure there, to be able to hold your hand through everything. And what we knew was the right decision, because like a week, like maybe even a couple of days later, like I was in the hotel, in the office, and found a time where everyone was on lunch and that, and called mom, and same thing, like over the phone, like it was just a stone cold silence, and I just didn't really know how to say it. And it was like, Mom, look, I can't continue to help out. It's not even helping out, like, we're just, what are we doing? We're just, and it was for the first time ever that we had a real and honest conversation. Things have just been swept under the rug, so much, because that's just the culture and the upbringing and everything. And the thing is that Mum knew, like, it was just like a letting all the air out of the balloon, like all the pressure was like just off, and like Mum knew straight away. She was just like, look, I know this is the right thing to do, but like, we just have, no one's really ever said anything. And it was just, like I said, such a relief, and we're all on the same page. And that was, again, to answer the question, that's really where, made the decision to stop, living, your life, and, for these, whatever you want to say, like, patterns and expectations that everyone has for you, and like really be like, no, look, I need to start doing stuff for myself. And that was like really the first time that, a line was drawn in the sand, and boundaries were, like healthy boundaries were set, and an honest conversation was had. Is you can do or listen to all the Les Brown podcasts and all the rest of that, and do all of your routines and everything every morning, but if you're not willing to put it into practice, it was just going to count for nothing. That was probably the most powerful move that really just got the ball rolling, to here we are now, in the UK.
That's amazing. So yeah. I'm just going to recap a couple of important things that you said, because I want to make sure that everybody hears what you said. So 2 things that you did, and I don't know how old you were when this happened, but listening to Les Brown. So you had that playing in your head every single day for 9 months.
Yeah.
Powerful words that you were hearing, positive affirmations, I'm sure, and just giving you the desire to get back in the game. You just knew, I've got to get on with my life. So it was filling your mind with great things. And then you had someone mentoring you. Vic's husband, was mentoring you through that process to give you the courage, which was so courageous, to set those boundaries. And what an open, honest conversation you were able to have with your mom, and that was never talked about. And I'm sure the pressure that you felt was just absolutely relieved. And how old were you? How old were you when you had that conversation?
I think it would have been like 21 or 22. So it wasn't too long after my professional contract. yeah, it was only like a couple of years after all of that stuff happened where I turned up to training, and then I found out that my contract was, you terminated.
I'm sure the freedom that you have had for the last 9 years,
Yeah,
because you are living your life with your own expectations, has been transformational for you.
It has been, and it feels like, for the first time ever, like, I literally remember that, moment like it was just yesterday, like first time ever that you're, living life on your terms.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I want that for my children, to have that freedom to live their life, not by the expectations of their parents. And sometimes they don't even realize that they think, we don't have expectations, but sometimes, kids think my parents expect me to do this. And the freedom of just going, I believe that there's a contract that has never really been signed by my parents, that, this is an expectation. And I think that was the relationship that you had with your mom at that time, when she was like, gosh, I know that this is what has to be done. And so beautiful, so beautiful. And so then what happened at that point? Did you go back into?
So, like I said, I started playing rugby union. So, like, I'll explain it like quickly, just for like people that aren't familiar with the sport. I grew up playing rugby league like all of my life. Like my older brother and I, we grew up playing rugby league. But there's also a sport in Australia and the UK and all around the world that is very similar but different, which is rugby union. And that's what I play. And I was playing like rugby league for a local team in Canberra, just playing, just locally, getting back into it. And I ended up making a highlights reel, and then the professional rugby union team in Canberra at the time, they got a hold of the footage and they invited me in to train for the year. And these are like some of the best players in the world, like, they play for, the international team in Australia, the Wallabies. So I was invited to, go in and train with them. But, I was working at the time 4 or 5 nights, a week behind the bar. Again, it was like, and then I was balancing that with, playing rugby league locally. But I had another opportunity to have, a second crack at, realizing a professional career, like something that you've always wanted to do as a kid, but in a new sport, which is very similar, but it's also like very different in a lot of ways to everything that I knew growing up. I basically, had to give up my job. And the thing is, I wasn't getting paid for it because they were just, extending an opportunity for me to be able to learn the sport. So I went from, working 4 or 5 nights behind the bar to basically playing for the training with the professional team and like not earning any money. And then Victoria and I, at the time, we'd saved up, enough to be able to put a deposit like on an apartment that, we'd moved into an apartment together at the time. And again, I guess a lot of that wouldn't have been able to do, had I not had that conversation with mum. But we were living in an apartment, and so we had to have some very like real conversations about, this is again, once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, it's the door's been opened again to have a crack at chasing your career, but it comes at the expense of half of our income at home is, going to be gone. And, we've just, bought a place together. So we had a lot of conversations like that. And like I said, it was like a huge blessing to have, Victoria's dad there, Stephen, and, both of the parents, obviously, to be able to hold our hand through all of that. And said, look, have a look at it this way. Like, it's like I said, a second chance at, chasing a childhood dream. And so Victoria ended up picking up 2 extra jobs. She was working 2 extra jobs. And this is exactly how she got into Arbonne, because she was just burning the match at both ends, trying to, make ends meet at home. And just like, this is just non-sustainable. Like, there has to be another way to be able, to make things work. And so that's how she ended up getting into Arbor. And obviously, you know, that was the vehicle for her to be able to earn passive income and not, you know, try to do 80-hour weeks, but, you know, burning herself out. I had I had a conversation with Stephen. I said, look, you know, this isn't fair on her. Like, I need to go back and study and work. And he, like I said, you know, thank goodness I had I have just an amazing father figure there to be able to, you know, his life experience of just seeing things. And he had a conversation with me. He said, look, I was, 25 at the time. He was like, realistically, you know, if you don't have this final crack at it, I just know you look back at your life and be like, you know, what if? Like, I just don't want that for you. You know, like, and Victoria was at a AAC at the time in America, and I was like, oh, this is not going to go down well. Like, I don't feel like it's fair to her. And like, you know, Stephen was quite stern. He said, look, Victoria, I think it's a great opportunity, you know. And she was like, oh, like, and like rightly so, she was just like, you know, so you know, fed up with having to, you know, work, you know, she's feeling like she, you know, got the short end of the deal, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And you know, we had the conversation. She came around and was like, look, you know, go for it. So I ended up, you know, doing the year with the Brumbies, and then I had an opportunity to go and play with the team in Sydney. So I went back to Sydney, and I was playing rugby union in Sydney. We were living apart. I'd come back and then visit, you know, for the weekend, and then go back and work behind the bar in Sydney, and you know, play for the team in Sydney. And then again, just made some footage. And then one of the guys that I was playing with in the team in Sydney, he was actually on a gap year from Scotland, and he did a little bit with the Glasgow Warriors. And he was just by chance playing in the same team as me, and he shared the footage. And then the Glasgow Warriors coach got a hold of it, and basically off the back of that offered me a 3-year deal.
Wow.
Yeah, but you know, one thing that I will say from all of that is, you know, again, you know, you have the blessing of having someone like Stephen, you know, with his life experience, to be able to say, look, do this and all of that. But you know, I believe in, like, you know, you make your own luck. You know, not had these hard conversations and made things like, you can't control everything. Like, you can just do what, you know, you have to do, and like just keep going at it. And you know, things just fly. I don't know. I feel like when you're just doing things in, you know, from a place of just, you know, good intentions and being honest and having those honest conversations with Mom and Stephen and everything, and like, okay, putting things into place, like, that's the best that I could have done in it, that any of us could do in any situation. And then things just have a way of, like, you know, working themselves out. Call it, like, you know, coincidence, call it serendipity or whatever, but you know, you make your own luck, right?
You do make your own luck. And I 100% agree. You know, as I lead a team, one of the things that I share with my team is, you know, God can't bless what you're not doing. And so unless you are moving forward in the direction of your dream, doors are not going to open for you. And that's exactly what happened in your life. And you had the motivation in your head, you had the right conversations, you had two amazing people that believed in you.
Yeah.
And so many times we think that if we don't have this solid group of people that are, you know, supporting us, that we're not going to be able to make it. You had two. Some people just have one person that supports them. And then you had the desire to move forward towards your dreams. And the doors start to open. That's such an incredible story.
I love that. I grew up going to church, and that obviously, I like as well. Like, it's, Christianity is a big part of the Pacific Island culture. And you know, when you're saying like God can't bless what you're not doing, like one of the things, you know, Mom and Dad always said to us growing up is quite similar to that, but it's do your best and God will do the rest.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So proud of you, Ratu. That's such an amazing story. yeah, you had two directions that you could go in life.
Yeah.
And, you could have stayed in the direction of, not living out your dreams, but you chose
Mm,
to live your life. And that's pretty amazing. Not under the expectation of anybody else, but,
mm.
we all are created for a unique purpose.
Yeah, we
And
are.
you're living out your dreams, your heart's desire, and your purpose. So that says a lot about who you are. Are there other ways right now today in your life that you choose
Mm.
to maintain that positive mindset? Do you still
I
listen to podcasts, etc.?
Yeah, I do. I've listened to, well, I don't listen to the Les Brown ones anymore, but I've actually had Jay Shetty's. There's one that he did with Joe Dispenza. I've had that one like on like repeat in my like, and it's just so in depth, and there's so much to take in and digest. I for one need to listen to to pick up stuff that I've missed. But same thing, it's like why fix something that's not broken? I basically just listen to that every day. If I'm like wondering about like going to the shop or going for a walk or whatever, like just plug that in. And there's other people like someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, Jay Shetty, Joe Dispenza. There's a guy called Dr. Jordan Peterson, who's he's an American lecturer and psychologist. He's all the stuff that his audio books and whatever else. But just basically having stuff in your head to, all I'm really saying there is controlling what you let, what's, news and everything that you take in, because it's so easy just, to scroll, and like I do it like myself, and making a bit of a a deal with like Victoria's like get up in the morning, like don't touch your phone for like the first like half hour, whatever it is in your day, and just take time to just have time for yourself and do whatever you need to do, be present, and get yourself started for the day, and then you can tend to whatever else when you're in like a good space. Getting into the habit of that, because otherwise it's anything can just take your attention. You're like, oh, did you see this? Did you see this? So and so, like
Distractions.
Just be so easily distracted. And that, ironically enough, is like not living life on your terms. That's living life like you're sort of pulled to and fro by like just so much information overload at the moment. Like, well, there will be with the way that technology and everything is now, but the same way that I just spoke about not living life, having that honest conversation with mum and everything, under those expectations, like I feel like it's very easy to fall into that same trap of being dragged to and fro by whatever you sort of put into your attention span. So
yeah, because we could live our life based on other people's expectations, not just our parents. It could be our boss, it could be our spouse, friends, other people's opinions. So there's so many things out there that could keep us from living our best life. And
exactly.
So this has been such a great conversation. So I have a few questions for you. So what motivates you? What keeps you motivated? So we're in our preseason phase at the moment. So you're just basically loading up for the season. We have these they're called like IPPs. It's like individual like player profiles. And so we have the same conversations with our coaches, like what's your motivation for the year and all the rest of that. And I thought about it like one of the cliche, I'd say cliche, but it is a real motivation as well, that all the boys put is like your family. Your family is your motivation, which is true. And I'd put that, I put Victoria for the last 2 years. And when we sat in a meeting as I was speaking, I know what, like I guess it was like now that I think about it, at the time when I was listening to a lot of the Les Brown stuff, like
I knew there was the right conversation to have with Stephen, and then, the right conversation to have with Mum. So listening to the Jay Shetty and the Joe Dispenza like podcasts, like, the idea was like there in my head. And, I was sat in the meeting, and I was like, what's a motivation? Like in a realistic, like a genuine, actual motivation, for the rugby, and not even just rugby, for the, the year, like, with Victoria and things outside of rugby and all the rest of it. I spoke to my coach when I sat down with him, which was just last Friday, and I said, you know what, like, when I sat there in the meeting, I thought, I look up to other players, like, in the team, like, and you can think of other players other people in your business that embody, these values or these concepts. We have like teammates that just, so professional, like, they turn up, when, other teammates might be down or whatever, and like, they bring energy to the team, and they do all the things that, when, people aren't looking, you just know, like, they're just so reliable, and so, you can count on them. And there's one of them, he's our most capped player at the club, and that should tell you, like, exactly the place that he operates from, is like, he just knows that he can squeeze the very best out of himself, like, every day. Like, whenever, like, boys are finishing from training, like, he's always, like, one of the last ones in, he's just doing all of his extras and things, and ticking all of his boxes. And one of the boys, he's actually just retired now. So when I spoke to our defensive coach, I was like, you look at boys like that, and you're like, that's there in all of us. And, family would usually be, motivation. And not saying that it is. If I'm being honest, family is going to be proud of you no matter what. Like, whether you do well or whether, you fail at what you're going out to do, like, your family's always going to be proud of you no matter what. What's even harder than that is you being proud of yourself. Like, you can look at yourself in the mirror. They're not going to know if, you skipped the meeting, or, you didn't give your best at training. You know that. So, I'd say my new motivation that I've sort of come around to over, like, in the last, week or so, is just trying to be a person, like, it's being your own hero, if you will, to be proud of, the rugby player, like, that I can be, or, like, partner to Victoria, son, to my parents, like, and a brother to, like, all my siblings and everything. And, you not always want to get it right, but to know that you're doing it from a place of, honesty and good intention. And that comes in, like, I've noticed that comes in all, like, different ways, because that might be having a hard word, with a teammate, or, it might be, having that hard conversation with Mum. But that that's where you're really living. So to answer the question, in that sort of roundabout way, is like, that's what now I see, like, I've done a few times, but being conscious of, that's the motivation, is to, be the best that you can be every day. And that might sound cliche, but I found that, like, definitely, like, challenges, myself to, go out and, like, look at those people that you aspire to. Is like, what is it about? He's like he's played the most games for the club. There's no coincidence why, like, he's doing his recovery every day. Like, he's squeezing, because you look back in your life and you're like, well, what did I really spend my time doing? Like, just, avoiding things or whatever I want. Nobody wants that, to look back and be like, I could have done more. I could have done this. I should have had this conversation with Mum. I should have, like, spoken honestly with Stephen, like, and then, like I said, I didn't know how to speak to my coaches at the time, so I just left. And, maybe had I spoken to them, they could have, been there to, support me through everything. Because, like I said, there was all the staff that were there and accessible, but I just didn't know how to speak to them. And that's, so, yeah, that's, I guess, to the motivation is, just squeezing the best and, like, the most that you can, because we've all got the same.
That's right.
24 hours. Nobody has any more, any less time. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that from, like, a high horse up here, like, that I do that every day. Like, there's so many things I'm, working through and trying to be better at. And, you know, that's also part of it as well, is like not being too hard on yourself, you know, when you do like inevitably, you know, get things wrong, because that's just a part of life.
Yeah, so the power of presence is what I hear you're saying.
Yeah,
is being
exactly.
present in the day and really enjoying those relationships in your life.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's hard to do that if we're not present in the moment and enjoying that moment. And I'm only saying that from, you know, from personal experience, that there have been many times where I haven't been present. Because, you know, so focused on, you know, other thoughts and other achievements or whatever. So I would love to hear, what is your biggest achievement to date?
Biggest achievement to date. Say biggest achievement to date. The first thing that comes to mind for me would be a sport related one, but it's more, so I got named after one of our games. We played in Edinburgh, and we'd stayed the night, and some of our friends from Australia were over visiting, and so had dinner with them. Then we drove back the next morning back home, and then I had a phone call, and it was a missed call, and I checked as we parked up, and like my heart was like, oh my god, like it was so Gregor Townsend, he's one of the, he's away now with the British and Irish Lions, as they're like, you know, the pinnacle, if you will, of you know, rugby in the UK. That's like the highest honor that you can get, you know, as a player. So they're in South Africa playing at the moment. But Gregor Townsend was the coach that actually signed me on the 3-year deal. He was the head coach at the Glasgow Warriors, and then he's now the Scotland international coach. So now that I've lived, they've changed rule now that I've lived in Scotland for 3 years. I'm eligible to represent Scotland internationally, to play on the international stage. So he was the coach. He's the current Scotland coach. And after the game, you know, we drove back. Just as we're pulling up at home, you know, I had the missed call, and then I I looked at the phone. I was like, oh God, it's Gregor calling me, and I was like, it's either one or two ways. It's like, you know, calling to say like, you know, you're either in the international squad or you're out of the international squad. So like, I was like, do you want to listen to the phone call? She's like, oh no, I don't know if I want to. I was like, nah, look, this would be either way. Like, you got to share as many special moments to be able to share. And yeah, so I put him on loudspeaker in the car. And we're like, all right, hey Gregor, hey mate, missed your call. He's like, hey mate, well, like, you know, the usual sort of small talk. And there's a sort of like pause, and it's like, you know, I don't usually do this, but you know, I thought I'd call you, you know, sort of ahead of time to, you know, give you a bit of a heads up. You know, we've been quite impressed, you know, with the way that you've been playing over the last couple of weeks, and you know, we're going to include you in our international Six Nations tour. And I was like, it's like,
that's awesome.
the big thick was like screaming, but like silent screaming and all the rest of that. And you know, forget about the rugby side of things and international. It's not about that. I hung up the phone, and then just everything came back into my head. I was like, far out, and I couldn't even like. I just started crying. Like, I just had tears. I just remember like I said, you know, every day, like listening to Les Brown, like working, you know, every day, like, you know, just delivering luggage and all the rest of that. And for the first, like a confirmation, I was like, man, that is real. Like, you know, you say you put into practice, you know, do your best and God will do the rest. Like, I'd say I was most proud, like, of myself, and just, I guess, like everyone, you know, that's had a part to play in, you know, making, you know, that moment available. Because those are moments like, you know, I don't know, you look back at, like, you know, maybe graduations, you know, weddings and things. That's where like everything just, like, you know, comes flooding back. And like I said, you know, forget about the sporting side of the achievement. It was just like far out, like all the adversity you've come through, like I just couldn't hold back the tears. It was like, man, that's a moment that I won't forget. And like I said, I'm really glad that I put it on loudspeaker in the car so that Victoria and I could, share that moment, have that memory to look back on. So, and then,
it was awesome that she got to share that with you too, because she was part of the process.
Yeah, exactly. She was in AAC at the time, and fair enough to her. Like she, was rightly fed up, with having to, feel like she's getting the short end of the stick, while I'm chasing, my career. So like I said, proud of like myself, but like, they say it takes a village to raise a child, and as you said, people, you can have a team of support, and having like two people there, Victoria and Stephen. But that's just a special moment, just to look back and be like, far out, like you can really just, achieve whatever you really want to if you just go at it. And,
you have to move forward.
Don't give up.
And all of the obstacles and adversities that you had to overcome at that moment, I'm sure you were like,
yeah,
worth it.
It's so worth it. Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So any last tips for championing your mindset that you want to leave with everybody?
Championing your mindset. How to say, like, I don't know, there's a lot that I could say there. I guess the first thing that I'd say that comes to mind and to heart is like, we're all different individually. Like, that's the type of person I am, like I said, I wanted to study, psychology, and I did for a little bit in university. So that, whole mindset side of things, like that sort of came, I was always quite like intuitive about that, or intrigued about that is the word I'm thinking of. And that might not be, everybody's like, everyone's different. That might not be like, what other people find natural, or, so you have to find, I'd say, like, what works, for you, because what works, for you or for Victoria might not necessarily work for me. But, you do know how to, the people that you have in your life, like, you do know, like, if they want the best for you or not. And I think those are the people that, you really, you hold close to you. And, those are the people that are going to be able to help push you towards where you want to. But just find, whatever works for yourself. And that's, it might sound a bit, a bit vague, but, once you do and you understand, yourself, like, just keep at it. Because you say you have two decisions, is what you said, earlier, is like to either, go for things, or to, or to not, and, live your life on other people's, terms. So find whatever works for you, and, keep changing it until you do, like, realize, like, what resonates with you. And then just keep going, like, whatever it is, like, if you, want to, like, if you love sport, or, like, you want to get into business, you're an entrepreneur, like, whatever it is that you honestly want to do. It's hard. It's not easy. Like, it's hard. It is hard. But, like, Victoria told me, the saying is, like, you choose your hard. Like, you can either go for it, or, you sit back and, think what if. And that's a conversation that, Stephen had with myself. So that's why, I allude to, if you have people in your corner that, you can really trust, and that know who you are, those people you hold on to and help, like Stephen did for myself, and, Victoria. But just go at it, like, whatever it is that anyone out there wants to do, is, yourself, like, the type of person that you are, and whatever works for you, but just, get all.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Ratu, thank you so much. I mean, I was actually, I don't know if you saw me, but I was actually taking notes as we were talking. Such a great interview. And, I just want to recap some things for you guys to carry with you on this interview. Ratu said so many amazing things for, championing your mindset. But, truly for him, it was, plugging in that last mile. So whatever that is to you, he listened to it every day. So listening and putting positive things in your mind is really going to help with those neural pathways and helping with that neuroplasticity to create some new mindset changes. And secondly, he made the decision to live his expectation and not the expectation of anyone else, which is so courageous at 21. If I would have only had that opportunity at 21, you guys. And so now is your time truly just to live your life. Make that decision to live your life for your expectation and not the expectation of other people. You had some amazing people that were just surrounding you and believing in you. You had two amazing people in your life that were believing in you. Some of us just have one person, but it doesn't matter, you guys. Every successful person has one person, maybe more, but one person who truly, truly believes in them. Carry that with you, because that's truly all that you need. And lastly, one thing that I love that Ratu said is find what works for you, because there are books out there that teach you ways to really have that champion mindset. There are podcasts that teach you ways to have that champion mindset. You can meditate, you can do yoga, you can pray. There are so many different things, but what is it that works for you? Because we can give you our keys to success, but those may not be the right ones for you. So such a beautiful, beautiful, inspiring interview. And you guys, I just want you to know from my heart of hearts, I believe in you. That's why I'm doing this podcast. I want to be able to breathe life into people and share with you whatever it is that you want to achieve in this world. It's possible. There will be some obstacles, there will be some challenges, but if you move forward and you do your best, God will do the rest. And I took that from Ratu as well. So such amazing things. And lastly, I just want you to remember that if you want to be a part of our private Facebook group, Deanna's Diamonds, just go to my website, deannaherron.net, and click on the Facebook icon and I can add you to that group. I am doing a challenge for the next month and you can participate in this challenge. And here's the challenge for you. The challenge is if you go rate, review, and subscribe to my podcast, take a screenshot of what you have rated and reviewed, and you can DM me or you can tag me on Instagram, and I will put your name in for a drawing for a 30-minute one-on-one coaching session with me. So in the month of August, you have, I believe, 4 opportunities to do that. So we will be doing that weekly, but you have to tag me so that I will know that you rate, reviewed, and subscribed. So it would be an honor for me to spend that 30 minutes with you. So if that is something that you desire, just tag me on that. So you guys, God bless you. Have an amazing Tuesday, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Take care, everyone.